Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast. I'm your host, Vista Chamber CEO Rachel Beld, and it's my honor to interview the movers, shakers, and change makers impacting our amazing Vista community and beyond. Today, I am joined by Assemblymember Laurie Davies. Laurie represents California's 74th District and brings a wealth of experience as a small business owner, former mayor, and now state legislator. We'll chat about her leadership journey, her passion for supporting small businesses and economic growth, and the work she's doing in Sacramento to strengthen our communities. Welcome, Laurie. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Rachel.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So you have had a fascinating career as a businesswoman, a local elected official, and at the state level. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to public service?
Certainly. Just real quick, originally from Wisconsin. And when I turned 18, bought myself a Cutlass Supreme, took my parakeet, and drove to Long Beach, where I put myself through community college and then Long Beach State. And I worked hard working as a waitress, bartender, banquets, to get my degree, and then I moved to Orange County, and I really started getting part of the chamber because I started my own business, an event company 27 years ago, and I saw the importance of working with the chamber and how they could really help small businesses like myself. And I started working with other groups from the Lions Club to the Rotary, and I had the opportunity to have some great mentors that came and said, we really would like you to serve on Laguna Niguel City Council, especially having a business background and a hospitality background. And so I had the opportunity to serve for 8 years, a two-time mayor. And when I was done with that, especially being on local councils, you really see local control being lost at the state level. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I really wanted to do, is to be able to have the opportunity to support and protect local control, but also issues that were really close to my heart, such as opioid and fentanyl deaths. Mm-hmm. Things that I knew that perhaps good policy could help change the issues that we had just in my local area. And so I really got involved, and it's an amazing job where you get to help people. I love to solve problems, and I get to do that.
That's amazing. I think as small business owners, absolutely solving problems all day, every day. And so that definitely prepares you for solving bigger problems and bigger challenges, either at the local level or the state level. And, we appreciate so much leaders who jump in and are willing to tackle problems. And I love that you had experience in your chamber, because I think I had someone once say to me, why do all chamber board members run for office? And I said, I don't think chamber board members necessarily run for office. I think civically minded people join their chamber and run their chamber, and then civically minded people run for elected office. So
true.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you describe your leadership style?
I would say my leadership is a team. Mm-hmm. I've always been a team person. The old sayings, there's no I in team. And whether it's my staff that I work with or my colleagues, I think you have to all come to the table together. And I think in order to be a good leader, you have to be a better follower. And so I'll say I would never ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And when they see that, I believe that there's respect and that they'll listen. But you have to be open-minded. And I would say the most important skill is listening. You have to listen, or you're never going to know really what the problem is. And getting other opinions actually opens a box. When I sat on city council, I might go in going, all right, this is how I see this issue and how I'm going to vote. But I'd listen to my colleagues, and sometimes it was like, wow, their knowledge and their reasoning is better than what I was thinking. I didn't even think about that, and where it changed, and I supported their plan because it made more sense. So you have to listen, you have to be open-minded, and you have to think out of the box. There's not always right or wrong. It's what is going to be the best policy that's going to be beneficial to everyone and not just one sector.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I like what you said about listening being the key component for leadership, because you really can't be a leader if you aren't collaborating and listening to other people's ideas. There's no way that one person's individual experiences are all knowing and can have every perspective. So I think that's really great that you're a listener.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, of course.
One thing that I've learned this year, especially very diverse group of colleagues up in Sacramento on the assembly floor. But I understood where sometimes they'll have issues where it's like, we just don't agree. But I also understood that all of us go through life with different experiences, and that you have to respect those experiences, and that the reason why they're so, strong in supporting something that perhaps I don't agree with is because the experience they were going through that I didn't go through, and vice versa. And when you look at that, you have to realize, okay, let's talk and let's see how we can make this better.
I think that's so good. Is there a moment that stands out during your time in leadership that really made you change your mind? Is there a time that stands out where you heard something or you learned something that made you really shift your opinion or belief?
There's a lot of different things that'll come in front of you. And for me, I think there's more than one. And that's one thing that we've always prided ourselves up in Sacramento is our door is always open. We're not one of those where, just staff will be talking to the lobbyists or talking to the groups coming in that have bills or have issues. I try to be there because for me, when they sit down, I listen. But I'm also one of those that starts going, hey, have you tried this or have done this or what about this? And actually try solving the problem while they're there. And we were talking that not every issue needs a bill. And I'm always like, is it a way we could meet with the stakeholders and actually fix this before we have to put the time, the money into pushing something and making sure that it's beneficial? So I think there's times where I'm like going, you know what, this doesn't have to be a bill. And that's where when I've talked to others going, they're like, you're right. We could solve this. Like a lot of us do. We don't have to have bills day to problem solve.
Absolutely. We go through our lives all day long making choices and decisions that are not legislated.
That's right.
So we can do that.
Good point.
Yeah, we can do that in other areas as well. I think that's a great point. I really admire you for lots of reasons, but especially as a strong woman leader. And I'm curious if you have any advice for young people, boys or girls or young women, particularly advice for stepping into leadership roles and any advice for them.
I think the best advice is to not be afraid. And that's something that my parents instilled in me. They pretty much let me, go out and seek the fact that, I left at 18 and
with your parakeet and your Cutlass.
With my parakeet and my Cutlass Supreme and paid for that car.
Yeah.
But they always gave myself and my siblings the opportunity to fail. And so I take everything on as, okay, and I'm also, I also believe that God opens up doors and windows for me. And there are so many times that I've done something and, didn't do it the way I wanted to, was disappointed in myself. But I reminded myself, I'll never let that happen to me again. And I did my homework and I studied. But unless you try to step out of the box, a lot of times, you don't get to see the opportunity because the brain just, there's so much that we can do. And I don't think people think enough of what they're capable of doing. Also, I let God, show me where the door is and where it's shutting. That's one thing that I found as when it comes to politics and running, people will say like, where do you want to go next? And I've never had that idea because I always said, I go where God puts me. And for me, if I learned skills, like when I was on city council, I got involved in regional groups where I was president of League of Cities of Orange County and ACCOC, OCTA board member, OCFA board members, so that I understood regionally, but then I also understood statewide. So when I got up there, I had that knowledge, and I always feel he puts you in places to learn, and then he takes you and puts you where you need to go there. And I just think that things work out so much better when I'm not making the decisions, when I allow him to open the door and allow me to do what I do best.
So be open to opportunities.
Always. And
go head first and don't be afraid to fail.
Never be afraid.
I love that. That's great advice. I think that's fantastic advice. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about some of your legislative work because you've been a supporter of small businesses as a small business owner. And so What do you think are the biggest challenges that are facing small businesses today? And then this back up with the second part of that would be what could we do at the state level about those challenges?
I don't think there's any question that mandates and regulations and tax increases on our small businesses are keeping them down. And that is what I'm fighting every day for up in Sacramento. We have to look at what the repercussions are. And it's frustrating when I hear a bill come out and they're like, we're going to punish the big bad corporations. What they don't understand is 80% of all of our businesses are small mom and pop businesses. And they aren't the corporations. This is the retirement. This is something they've been having, brought down through family, whether it's a restaurant that they've owned for 50 years or a new business they're starting. We are not helping our businesses. We are hurting them with legislation. And we watched in 2023, we watched all of these people leave small businesses that couldn't afford to even, open or stay open and be successful. And due to that, and then those that worked for them, we lost $30 billion in revenue. So not only was our deficit $48 billion at that time, it threw another 30, so we're at $78 billion. And
wow.
And that's where people have to realize, votes have repercussions, and they have to see the big picture. How is this going to affect our mom and pop businesses? We need to be able to make it that, that's the beauty of California, the beauty of the United States. We have the opportunity to actually start our own business, and it's all, starts from the bottom, and we work hard, and most of us don't take any income from it for many years, but they're giving jobs to others. And we have to remember that it is our job to lift them up and make them successful. So I just think that the more my colleagues can understand that when there's talking about big bad government or big bad corporations, this isn't who's being affected. You can look at those that own apartment buildings. And even during COVID, a lot of them, that was a retirement. They owned maybe one or two condos. And when COVID came in and they said, you don't have to pay your rent, I stood up and said, who's going to pay their mortgage? You can't just do one thing and hurt the other. And again, these aren't multi-apartment complexes. These are families that own maybe a duplex. And we have to help them so they can help the others. And if you're doing that, utilities are going up. How are they supposed to cover that? So again, we have to look at the big picture. Who does this affect when we put these mandates and fees on? And is it really going to bring revenue in, or is it going to take it away?
Wow. Yeah. That's definitely something to think about. I know at the Vista Chamber, we have a couple of members that are small rental property owners. They own just a couple of small properties, and that's an area where they're putting together a group to talk about issues that impact them. And so definitely that's one that I've heard quite a bit about.
Well, count me in on that group.
Okay, absolutely. I'm going to make an introduction for sure. So economic development and economic growth is a huge important factor in our region. How do you feel that the chamber and the state and cities, how can we all work together to push economic development forward? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do. And again, I think, the revenue comes from those that live within the city. Again, our small businesses. That's really what is funding our cities. You have, it might be car dealerships. It could be Costco's. But a lot of these are franchises. And again, single owners but not big corporations. And the corporations come in and they are also very helpful. You have, nearby like Gen Tech and other places like that, which are fantastic, and they're employing people. But we have to be able to make sure, number one, that our residents can afford to live here. If we don't have revenue coming in from property taxes, from local taxes, and they're leaving because of affordability, we don't have the revenue. And a lot of people don't understand it, and I understand they're busy in this, but when it comes to local government, 50% of all of the taxes, mainly retail sales tax and property taxes, pay for public safety and for infrastructure. 50%. So if we don't have enough, living in our communities where they can afford to live, then you're not going to have that revenue coming in to for public safety, which is always our first priority, and for infrastructure, which actually is public safety as well. When you look at the conditions of roads and having the resources that you need for people to get from one place to another.
Yeah, well, and infrastructure also includes things like sewer.
That's right.
And things like if you flush your toilet and it doesn't work, that's
Water.
a problem. That's a problem. I'm curious, Laurie, do you have any thoughts or any ideas or programs that you know of that you'd like to share that touch on workforce development and the future workforce? Is there anything at the state level that's happening that you would want to share?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about my apprenticeship bill that we got
Yes.
passed a couple of years ago. When I came to California, I was 18 years old. We're looking like 1980, 1981. That California dream was viable. I could afford to work 2 jobs, pay my rent, pay my car insurance, and pay for school. And over the course of, I hate to say how many years, but 40 some years, that is not there anymore. And so our kids that are getting out of high school, they can't afford college, or if they do, they're getting out with a huge debt and they can't afford to live here. So they're taking all of the skills that they have, that they have learned, not to mention community college where our taxes are paying, and I think that's great, and they're leaving because they can't afford this. So the whole idea is, how do we keep them here? How do they get to have lived that California dream that we have? Because it's not fair. And that's one of the most important things to me when I talk to students and college kids. And that's their biggest thing is, we can't afford to be here. And so when I started talking to trades when I first got up in Sacramento, I'm like going, listen, trades was big when I was in high school. And then I know it was kind of flipped over where it was like 4-year school. If you're going to be successful, 4-year school. I think 4-year schools are great for everyone. I went, to Long Beach State, but also trades are still important. We have all these infrastructure jobs, and we don't have enough. The average age of a tradesperson is 38. And so they stopped putting trades in school. So when I talked to them, I said, why don't we get that back into schools? And that was something like, we would love to have that. So we worked together. We worked with schools, we worked with trades, we worked with labor, and we got the first mandated bill that now mandates that career counselors will also give an orientation not only about the opportunities of a 4-year school, but a business where you can work with your hands. It's debt-free. It is paid. Your education is paid for. You start with benefits and you start with a lower wage while you're learning. But if you go through your journeyman, which is like 5 years, you're in 6 figures. You've got great retirement. You can afford to stay here and actually not live with your parents. You can afford to have a family, and you'll have a career that is needed and will always be needed.
That's fantastic. Recently, I heard a statistic. One of our local high schools, all of our local high schools have trade programs or CTE programs, and they all offer different ones. So you can, go to the high school that has the program that you'd like. But I heard a statistic in the construction management class over at Rancho Buena Vista High School, and that's for every 3 people retiring from a trade job, there is 1 person that is skilled and ready to step up. And so there is incredible demand in our trade industries for talented staff and talented skilled workers. So I think that's fantastic that you were able to put something in place at the state level to help move that forward and to let folks know about those opportunities. When I hear about a 5-year training program and you can make 6 figures, it makes me think I need a career change.
I wasn't talking to my husband about that.
Yeah.
I said we could stay with all the pinholes in our community. He wouldn't even have to leave the community if he was a plumber, and he'd have full-time work, which would be great. You could walk to work.
Yeah.
But what's great, too, is because of I have the opportunity of serving Pendleton and also on the committee for vets and military, that we work with the helmets to hard hats. We work with, pretty much anything. We work with those that are coming out of jail and giving them an opportunity and, getting them a job. There's just so many groups now that have been great that are actually out there and letting people know. When I talk to people my age, are like, we were so glad to hear that because that just wasn't there. And my kids are great with their hands, and now they hear this opportunity. It just wasn't out there. And it also had somewhat of a dark cloud over it that, it was, it was 4-year school, which is great, but not for everyone.
Right. It's interesting. I've told this story on the podcast before, but my son, when he was 4 and he had his preschool graduation, they had every kiddo came up to the mic and said, my name is such and such, and I want to be and so there were kids, my name is so-and-so, and I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a YouTuber, paleontologist. And my son came up and he said, my name is Colin, and I'd like to be a window washer. And everyone was so quiet. And the teacher said, say it again, honey. And he said, got closer to the mic and he said, my name is Colin, and I want to be a window washer. And of course, we're all, clapping. I'm like, yay. But he had never said that to me before. So after I said, honey, that's so interesting. What made you say that you want to be a window washer? And he said, I like to clean windows. It's fun. And I like to be outside. And I thought, I have a feeling that we might be having conversations. And he's super bright kid, he loves math and he's great, but he loves to be outside and he likes to work with his hands. And now he's in middle school, so we'll see. But I think about that conversation frequently because I have a feeling that he's going to be doing something with his hands, and he'll be paid well for it because we need those types of skills. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that we forget to acknowledge to our kids that, when you have a job that you love,
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, like this job, I work long days and sometimes 7 days a week, and you have to campaign every other year. Sometimes it feels like the whole time, but it's a job that I love. And we do so much better. And I think instead of saying, well, this is important, or this in society is what's considered an important position, that's what I want you to be, or that's what you feel like you're supposed to be. And it's like, find something that you love, because there are lots of paying good jobs out there. But if you love something and you love learning and you want to improve on that, you've already, to me, you've solved,
that's success right there.
Success right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's so true. That's so true. And I think about my parents' generation and even my grandparents, they never seemed to, at least in my family, necessarily find joy in their work. It was what they were told they needed to do, or what a counselor at school said, you need to go to do this. And I think that's one thing that's really shifted, is that people want to find a career that is not just what they do, but part of who they are. And I think that that's really great. A great lesson is to find something that you love, and if it all works out right, then the money follows and you have what you need, So I think that's really good advice.
No, you're right. I mean, my parents grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
And so it was for my father, taking care of a wife and 5 kids, and working, outside as a foreman for a park. But in the winter, he was a snowplower, and in the summer he laid sod. And that was their job. That was the only priority, was to make sure that the bills are paid. My kids have food on the table, and our family is taken care of. And now there's so many different opportunities that you can do. And so it really is endless in what we can do nowadays.
Your dad sounds really amazing.
I was very blessed.
Yeah.
Good ethics that he taught me.
I'm curious. So 5 kids. What number are you in that order?
I'm 4th.
Okay, 4th, second to the youngest.
Yep. My mother was a school teacher, substituted, started, and then when we were all into, past kindergarten, she worked in Chishua's 80 teaching.
Wow.
3rd grade and a few other grades. But I remember going to school with her, but it was, you're just taught. It's like, if you want anything more, get a job.
Yeah.
From babysitting until, 15 and a half and working at A&W, and then, picking up money, you were taught the importance of a dollar, and learned how to, what it does and what you can do with it, but also that you're responsible for it.
Wow, that's so cool. So thinking about right now, as we're talking, it's fall. You're in
I'm all
district.
happy.
You're in district, having a great time. And so I'm curious, as you think ahead to the next legislative session, what are some things that are on your mind as far as priorities, legislative priorities, or things that you are interested in working on as we approach the next legislative session?
Absolutely. I had the opportunity to sit down with my chief of staff and my ledge director up in Sacramento. And I know it sounds odd, but when I get the list of things that we're looking at, like what we think would be great, it's like a Christmas list. And I get so excited because, again, it's like a list of solving people's problems. It's like a gift that we can give. And all of our legislation comes from our district. And that's the opportunity of when we're outside in the district talking to people, it's like, what can we do to help you? What are your issues? And that's where our bills are actually created by. They're not my bills. They're my district's bills. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that we have so much support for them, because I'm not doing somebody else's agenda. I'm not having this is my agenda. It's our districts. And so these are day-to-day issues that they're dealing with. And so I still, number one, Prop 36, the people voted for that 2 years ago. It was 70-some%. And that was about making sure that crime was illegal again. Mm-hmm. And how did that affect our businesses? Huge. Our businesses were being broken into daily. It wasn't safe. People didn't want to go in there. People didn't want to work there. Our streets weren't safe. Our law enforcement wasn't safe. And the people said, enough is enough. Safety comes first. Mm-hmm. That is our priority. And they passed it. But the legislation, when you looked at the budget last year,
it wasn't funded enough.
They wouldn't fund that.
Yeah.
And they said, no, this is up to the city or the county to fund Prop 36, which also included health care for the mentally ill. And so to me, that was probably one of the worst decisions, and I could not support that. When the people are voting on something and they put it out there for the people to vote, their taxes, they should have a say where their taxes go. And this was their number one priority, to be able to feel safe, to know that their kids are safe, seniors, everybody, businesses. And I was so frustrated when everything else got passed through budget. But that was one of the things that didn't, along with our CAL firefighters not getting an increase in wages. And we look at the extreme fires that we've been having, wildfires, and they are working at a minimum wage, and they're going out there. And the odds of them being injured is huge. Mm-hmm. So I think they have to start prioritizing what is important and what's not important. But I will not let that stop. We will work on that. Public safety is always important. I've been working with sober living homes, and that is an issue throughout Orange County and my Fuller district. And the sober living homes and detox homes, we've got a major issue when it comes to those that are addicted on drugs, mental health, alcohol. And we have these homes, and there's a lot of great actors out there. Unfortunately, people have been taking advantage, and they're opening up their own detox. They're opening up their own sober living home where people should go after they've been detoxed, but they're not caring for the patient. Oh. And patients are dying. There are suicides. They're putting them on medication, not even knowing what they had. And so the concern was DHCS at the state level and dealing with violations. And the parents that I've had call saying my child died, or we thought we were putting him in a place that was authorized to do this or had credentials, and everything looks great on the website. But anyways, what this does now is it makes it, because they weren't checking on violations from 3 to 8 years. Violations. So wow. Now this bill, working across the aisle, we got it that now they have 10 days to respond to the person that sends the violation, letting them know they received it, and then within 2 months, solving that and getting back to them and letting know what the results were. It's about the patient. It's about saving lives.
Wow. That sounds like a really important issue. Wow. Thank you for those. Thank you so much for that. So, we talked a little bit about the state level and what's happening in the district. I really wanted to kind of hone in on Vista and North County for just a sec. And I'm just curious, because you do have a tough job of representing 2 areas in 2 different counties. Pendleton's in the middle. Mm-hmm. But specifically for North County, what excites you about North County? What do you think is positive in the future for North County?
What I love about my district, as you said, it's very diverse. I have Orange County, and they have their issues. I have Pendleton, they have their issues. And then I have North San Diego, and they have different issues. And for me, some of the most important issues was the lack of literacy for our kids. And the lower income are not having that opportunity, these kids, to get to the reading level where they need to be. And I had learned about this desert of a desert of books, a desert of literacy, where they don't have libraries near them, that they share a book. And the importance, so we got together and we worked on having a program where kids came out and we had books, and they got to take the books and they had people reading to them. And it's amazing when they learn to read how it influences them. Not only does it get them back, it gives them a life of having experiences and seeing what else is out there, but also it helps them when it comes to their grades. And so working on programs like that were important. We have a swim lesson bill that finally went through. We have a lot of lower income in certain areas in the North County, and the correlation of drownings and lower income is huge. And so we were able to work across the aisle and get a bill that now there will be a program that will start looking at how do we fund swim lessons so that they have the opportunity not only to learn, but their parents do as well. They learn safety such as CPR, choking, all of these things that are so important because we've got to make sure that they're safe. But then we also have the opportunity with businesses and putting programs on. We just did a major senior scam again, and this one was in Vista.
Very well attended.
And it's one of our biggest things. We do Oceanside, Vista, and then we do Orange County. We usually have 200 to 400 people show up. And right now with AI and the amount of money that our seniors are getting scammed on is horrific. But we get to sit there and educate and inform, and I think it's all about safety. Also has become the issue for me, but to me, giving people a hand up, not a hand out, is what's so important. And to watch the businesses and the volunteers in North County come together and all these incredible nonprofit programs that they have, just warms my heart. And so to be part of that, and then also acknowledge them so that they understand what they're doing is important, because they're the ones, you see it all the time. They're behind the curtain, but they're doing all the hard work. So for me, it's allowed me to, like as I'll say, my district is purple. It's not about party, it's about policy. And I think every elected should have a district with mine, so you understand that it's not all one way or the other way. And you bring people together and you bring their ideas, and that's what it is. It's about taking care of them, listening, and creating good policy and programs.
I love that. That's awesome, Laurie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we're coming to the close of our conversation, but before I get to our rapid fire questions, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention? Anything on your list that you want to get out?
If I could,
yes.
Just real quick about housing.
Yes.
Because obviously affordability in housing, and we know that, and that was, again, despite the word affordability happening up in the legislature, I don't really believe much was actually pushed through. And so it's important that people realize that what they're voting on, is this making life more affordable or is it not? And one thing when it comes to housing, and again, every district is different. And that is probably the most important message when I'm talking to people that are doing full-on state bills is one size doesn't fit all. Vista is in Oceanside. Oceanside is in Orange County. And that goes throughout the state. My district isn't Northern San Francisco district. So when it comes to housing, we understand what needs to be done, but let the locals decide what it looks like. We understand the bottom line is we need to get people so they don't have to get on the freeway and drive an hour and a half to go to work. We want to keep carbon emissions down, keep them off the road. But we have to give the authority back to the local, the local jurisdiction. And I think what I wanted to do too is I realized I live in a master plan city where when you created Laguna Niguel, there were resources. You put infrastructure first instead of putting housing, because what good is it to sit there and build housing out far when you don't have grocery stores nearby, gas stations, you don't have schools, you don't have medical clinics. It goes hand in hand. So my goal is to try to do a pilot program with the cities, and I truly believe workforce should come at least at the same time, if not first, because if you don't have teachers and you don't have public safety, I mean, firemen, a lot of them live in Arizona and fly here or drive here because they've got like a 3-day stint. We have to have places for them that they can afford. So if you're going to build housing, whether it's apartments or condos and that, if they know, listen, I've been offered this job, I know what the income is, and I know that there's a place for me to live, and this is how much it is, I can take it. They don't have that whole thing is off the table then going, they work hand in hand. And as they move up with salary, then either they pay a little bit more so that it meets, or they then have an opportunity to put money aside and buy a house,
right,
which is the California dream. And then it opens up for new people coming in.
Yeah.
But
that's a cool idea.
To me, it's common sense. And when I talk to builders and trades, they're like, it makes sense. Those that are building the houses, they should be able to, have a place that they can call home as well. And it works for everyone, and low income. But we have to have the resources. We have to have the workforce in order to give that to those that are going to be in the lower income coming here. We need to have everything, but we have to have workforce housing. And I'm working extremely hard, and I will keep working on that to at least do a pilot program where we can show them that this actually does work.
Wow, that's cool.
Just a small little thing.
No big deal.
Yeah,
Just solving
exactly.
the workforce housing shortage across the state. No big deal.
Common sense.
Yeah, got it. Love it. Laurie, thank you so much. I have
My
a couple of rapid fire questions for you that I ask all my guests. And so my first question is, tell me a movie that you love.
My favorite movie is Forrest Gump.
Oh, I love that movie.
Because
it's so good.
What I love about him, where I said, don't be afraid, it's like he never had a fear. He just stepped out, and he was everywhere and anywhere, and he always saw the bright side of it. And maybe that's why I always have that philosophy of don't be afraid to step out, because you earn so much more, you gain so much more than you would have lost if you didn't do that. But how can you not love Forrest Gump?
It's so good. And recently, just a few weeks ago, we watched it. My husband and I watched it with our kids who are 16 and 11, and they loved it too. Although they got mad when it got sad. They was like, "No, didn't tell me it would be sad." But it's a great movie.
That's life.
Yeah, that is life. Exactly. Okay, next question. Tell me a song that you love. I know that's a tough one, but
there's one by Phil Wickham, who is one of my favorite singers, and it's The Battle Belongs to You.
Okay.
And sometimes I definitely listen to that almost every day when I'm going through campaigning, because it's it's rigorous, it's exhausting, but again, I really truly believe that I'm here for a reason. But it just fills my heart, and I remember all the good things that we've been given, how blessed we've been. And it fills me up, kind of like they say, you have to be filled up, like a car needs to be filled up with a tank of gas so that you can go out and hopefully, bring joy to people. We're here to help and bring joy.
I love that. Laurie, what's something that inspires you?
What inspires me is watching those that don't think that they have a voice or they can make a difference, and helping them be lifted up. I love trying to mentor, because I've had such incredible mentors in my life that didn't need to be there, but were there. And so watching somebody go from kind of that shell and then just be themselves and succeed no matter what that will be, that's, to me, the most incredible thing you can do.
I love that. Okay, last question. Tell me a Vista business that deserves a shout out.
There's so many, and now I feel a little pressure to put this out there. What I can say is there's so many businesses out there, and I think it's so important because, you know what, a lot of us stay in our same routine, but go downtown. Start looking at that. I can tell you, I just went down to San Juan Capistrano, and all of these new restaurants, it's so important that we as residents support our businesses locally. So sometimes just take a walk down into the neighborhoods or the industrial areas and see what we have. Go on the chamber. I mean, the chamber is great. Going like, what do we want to do? And look down and say, oh, there's a new business here. There's a new restaurant or, a new hotel. Let's go check it out, because really our word is what gets it out there and letting people know. So I know that may be a political answer, but honestly, it is, you know what? Everything begins at home. Support your local economy. They need it, especially what the affordability and everything we're going through.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Laurie.
My
I
pleasure.
really
It's been
appreciate
great.
you being here. Thank you so much to our guest, Laurie Davies, and thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tell a friend. Help us move Vista forward with velocity. The Vista Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization that serves as a catalyst for business growth. Find us online at vistachamber.org.